My name is Jennifer Hayes. I'm 35 years old, and tonight was supposed to be the happiest night of my year. My husband David had made reservations at Bellissimo, the most expensive Italian restaurant in downtown Chicago, to celebrate my birthday. He even bought me a new dress, a gorgeous navy blue number that hugged my curves perfectly. As I sat across from him in the candlelight, watching him smile at me over his wine glass, I remember thinking how lucky I was to have a husband who still made such romantic gestures after 12 years of marriage. "Happy birthday, Jen," David said, raising his glass. His dark eyes sparkled in the warm restaurant lighting. "To my beautiful wife, 35 looks amazing on you." I blushed, feeling genuinely appreciated for the first time in months. Our marriage had been strained lately. David worked long hours at his finance firm, often coming home after I was already asleep. We barely talked anymore, barely touched. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like the old David, the man I fell in love with at 23, was finally coming back to me. The waiter brought our appetizers, and we made small talk about my day, my job as a graphic designer, the weather, anything to fill the comfortable silence. I was just about to bite into my bruschetta when David's phone buzzed loudly on the table. He glanced at the screen, and I saw something flash across his face. Panic? Annoyance? It was gone so quickly I wasn't sure. "I'm so sorry, honey," he said, standing up and grabbing his phone. "It's Marcus from work. There's an issue with the Henderson account. I need to take this outside. It'll just be a minute, I promise." I nodded, trying to hide my disappointment. Of course, work is work. He kissed my forehead quickly and walked toward the restaurant's entrance, his phone already pressed to his ear. I watched him disappear through the heavy wooden doors, then turned back to my appetizer. The bruschetta suddenly didn't look as appetizing. I took a sip of wine instead, trying to push down the familiar feeling of being second place to his career. That's when I noticed her. An elderly woman, maybe 70 years old, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun and wearing a tailored cream-colored suit. She was sitting alone at a table near the back of the restaurant, and she was staring directly at me, not just glancing my way, but staring with an intensity that made my skin prickle. When our eyes met, she stood up immediately, her movements purposeful and urgent. My heart started beating faster as she walked toward my table. There was something in her expression, something between pity and determination, that made every instinct in my body scream that something was wrong. She reached my table, and without asking permission, pulled out David's empty chair and sat down. "Please forgive the intrusion," she said quietly, her voice shaking slightly. "My name is Margaret Sullivan. You don't know me, but I know who you are." She reached into her expensive leather purse and pulled out a thick envelope. "This contains $5,000 in cash and the business card of the best divorce attorney in Chicago. Take it. Get up right now. Walk out of this restaurant. Don't look back." I stared at her, completely frozen. "I'm sorry, what? Who are you? Why would I need a divorce attorney?" Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "Because, my dear, your husband is not on a phone call with Marcus about the Henderson account. Your husband is sitting in a private booth in the back of this very restaurant with my daughter, Amber. And what you need to understand right now is that Amber is 6 months pregnant with his child." The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually felt the air leave my lungs. "That's not possible. You're confused. You have the wrong person." "I wish I did," Margaret said, sliding the envelope closer to me. "But I don't. I've seen your picture dozens of times. Amber has photos of you all over her apartment. Photos she found on David's phone that he told her were of his ex-wife. He told my daughter he divorced you 2 years ago. He told her he was going to marry her as soon as the baby was born. But 3 weeks ago, I happened to see David's Facebook profile when Amber left her laptop open. His status still says married. His profile picture is of you two at a wedding last summer. That's when I knew my daughter was being lied to, and you were being betrayed. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold my wine glass. Where is he?" Margaret's face crumpled with sympathy and guilt. "Don't turn around yet. Just listen to me first. If you confront him now, in public, you'll be the one who looks unstable. He'll twist it. He'll make you seem jealous and crazy. Take the money. It's not much, but it's enough to get you started with the lawyer. His name is Robert Chen, and he specializes in high-conflict divorces where one spouse has hidden assets. Because I promise you, Jennifer, if David has been living this double life, he's been hiding money too." "How do you know my name?" I whispered. "Because Amber talks about you. She's not a bad person, Jennifer. She's foolish and pregnant and in love with a man who's using her. But she genuinely believed you were his ex-wife. She's 24 years old. She doesn't know she's destroying a marriage because she thinks there's nothing left to destroy. I felt bile rising in my throat. 24 years old. She was barely older than some of my younger cousins. Where are they? Margaret took a deep breath. There's a private dining area in the back, past the kitchen entrance. Booth number 7. But Jennifer, please don't go back there yet. Let me help you think this through. But I was already standing. The rational part of my brain had completely shut down, replaced by a burning need to see it with my own eyes. I needed proof. I needed to know that this woman wasn't insane, that my entire marriage hadn't been a lie. Which way? I demanded. Margaret stood too, resignation on her face. Past the bar, turn left at the kitchen entrance. But please be careful. He's not who you think he is. I walked through the restaurant on autopilot, my legs moving even though I couldn't feel them. My vision had narrowed to a tunnel. Diners at other tables blurred into meaningless shapes. The music playing overhead sounded like it was underwater. Turn left at the kitchen entrance. Booth number 7. And there they were. My husband of 12 years, sitting across from a beautiful young blonde woman with a pronounced baby bump clearly visible in her fitted maternity dress. Their hands were clasped together on the table. He was leaning forward, saying something that made her laugh. That bright, genuine laugh I remembered from our early dating days. The laugh he hadn't given me in years. She was glowing, absolutely radiant with happiness and pregnancy hormones. And David, my David, was looking at her the way he used to look at me, like she was his entire world, like nothing else mattered. I don't remember walking up to their table. I don't remember what my face must have looked like. But I remember the exact moment David saw me. His expression went from loving and relaxed to absolutely terrified in a split second. The color drained from his face. His mouth fell open. And that's when I knew, with absolute certainty, that Margaret was telling the truth. Jen, he stammered, jerking his hands away from the blonde woman like she'd burned him. What are you? I thought you were at our table. I was just... Who is she? I asked. My voice sounded eerily calm, even to my own ears. Who is this woman, David? And why is she wearing a maternity dress while holding hands with my husband? The blonde woman, Amber, looked between us with confusion morphing into horror. David? Who is this? Why is she calling you her husband? You said you were divorced. You said... Amber, just give me a second to explain. David started, but I cut him off. His name is David Michael Hayes. We've been married for 12 years. Our anniversary is August 14th. We live at 2847 Maple Street in the blue house with white shutters. We have a joint checking account at First National Bank. Last month we went to his company's annual dinner together. I'm wearing the dress he bought me yesterday for my 35th birthday, which is today, which is why we're having dinner at this restaurant right now. Or at least, I thought we were having dinner. Apparently, he's having dinner with you. Amber's hand flew to her mouth. Tears immediately started streaming down her face. Oh my God, you're not his ex-wife, you're his actual wife. David, what have you done? You told me, you promised me. Both of you need to calm down, David hissed, looking around nervously at the other diners who were starting to notice the commotion. This is not the place for this conversation. Jennifer, go back to our table. We'll talk about this at home. Something inside me snapped. The calm I'd been clinging to shattered into a million pieces. Talk about it at home? Talk about what, David? About how you've been cheating on me. About how you got your mistress pregnant. About how you've been living a completely separate life behind my back. My voice had risen to a level that definitely attracted attention now. A manager started walking toward us. Other diners had stopped eating and were openly staring. David stood up, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Keep your voice down. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? I laughed, and it sounded slightly unhinged even to me. You're sitting in a booth with your pregnant girlfriend in the same restaurant where you're supposed to be celebrating my birthday, and I'm the one making a scene. Amber was full-on sobbing now. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. He showed me divorce papers. He said everything was finalized. He said we were going to be a family. That's when Margaret appeared beside me, placing a gentle but firm hand on my shoulder. Jennifer, the manager is coming. You need to decide right now. Are you going to let him control this narrative, or are you going to take control yourself? I looked at her, then at David's panicked face, then at Amber's devastated expression, and something crystallized inside me. This was my moment. This was where I either became a victim of David's lies, or I became something else entirely, something stronger. I turned to the approaching manager, a thin man in his 50s wearing a pristine suit. I apologize for the disturbance. I'll be leaving immediately. But first, I'd like to settle my bill. My husband and I were having dinner at table 12 before he excused himself to join his pregnant mistress back here. I assume he'll be paying for all 3 meals. The manager's eyes widened. He looked at David, who had gone completely pale. Sir, is this true? Are you dining with 2 separate parties tonight? This is a private matter, David said through clenched teeth. I'll handle my own bill. Perfect, I said brightly. Then I'll leave you to it. Oh, and David, don't bother coming home tonight. Actually, don't bother coming home ever. I'll have the locks changed by morning. You can send your lawyer to discuss property division. I turned and walked away before he could respond, before the tears threatening to spill could actually fall, before the trembling in my legs could make me collapse. Margaret walked beside me, her hand still on my shoulder, guiding me back through the restaurant. Every eye in the place was on us, but I kept my head high. I would not give David the satisfaction of seeing me break down in public. We made it back to my table, where my half-eaten appetizer sat next to David's untouched meal. The waiter appeared looking concerned. Ma'am, is everything all right? Can I get you anything? Just the check, please, I said. I'll be paying separately from the gentleman who was sitting with me. He's at booth 7 in the back if you need to verify with him. The waiter nodded quickly and disappeared. Margaret sat down across from me and pushed the envelope toward me again. Take it. I know you don't know me, and you have no reason to trust me, but please take it. My daughter is a victim of David's lies too, but you're his wife. You're the one who's been betrayed the longest. You deserve justice. I picked up the envelope with shaking hands. Why are you helping me? Your daughter is pregnant with my husband's baby. Shouldn't you be on her side? Margaret's expression hardened. My daughter made a choice to get involved with a married man, even if she believed his lies. But you didn't choose any of this. You woke up this morning thinking you had a faithful husband. You came to this restaurant thinking it was a romantic birthday dinner. You deserve better than being blindsided like this. And frankly, I'm disgusted with my daughter for being so naive, but I'm furious with David for being such a manipulative, lying bastard. The waiter returned with my bill. I paid it quickly, leaving a generous tip despite the disaster the evening had become. As I stood to leave, I looked back one more time toward booth 7. David was standing now, arguing in hushed tones with Amber, who was crying hysterically. The manager stood nearby, clearly trying to decide whether to intervene. Do you want to know something that might make you feel better? Margaret asked quietly, as we walked toward the exit. David has been promising Amber that he's going to leave you since she told him about the pregnancy 3 months ago. He swore up and down that he was just waiting for the right time, but every week, there was another excuse, another reason to delay. I don't think he ever had any intention of leaving you. I think he wanted to have both lives indefinitely. The night air hit my face as we stepped outside, cool and refreshing after the stifling atmosphere of the restaurant. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything that had just happened in the last 20 minutes. 20 minutes ago, I was a happily married woman celebrating her birthday. Now I was standing on the sidewalk with my husband's mistress's mother, holding $5,000 in cash and contemplating divorce. What do I do now? I whispered. The question wasn't really directed at Margaret, more at the universe in general, but she answered anyway. You go home. You take photos of everything valuable in your house before David has a chance to hide anything. You call Robert Chen first thing Monday morning. You open your own bank account at a different bank and transfer half of everything from your joint accounts before David can empty them. You protect yourself, Jennifer, because I promise you, he's not going to go down without a fight. I looked at this stranger who had just blown up my entire world while simultaneously trying to protect me from further damage. Why did you come to the restaurant tonight? How did you know we'd be here? Margaret smiled sadly. Amber told me this morning that David was taking her to Bellissimo tonight to celebrate her 2nd trimester. She was so excited, showing me the new maternity dress she bought for the occasion. I had this terrible feeling in my stomach all day, so I made a reservation under my own name, came early, and waited. When I saw you walk in with David, looking so happy and unsuspecting, I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let you sit there celebrating while he was planning to slip away to be with my daughter. It was cruel. Unconscionable. Tears finally started falling down my cheeks. Thank you. I know this must be horrible for you too, but thank you for telling me. I would have gone on thinking everything was fine. He would have kept lying, kept dividing his time between us, and I would never have known. Margaret pulled me into an unexpected hug. You're going to be okay, Jennifer. It doesn't feel like it right now, but you will survive this. You'll come out stronger on the other side. I promise you that. I hugged her back, this strange guardian angel who appeared in my darkest moment. When we pulled apart, I wiped my eyes and straightened my shoulders. I should go. I have a lot to do before Monday morning. Call me if you need anything, Margaret said, pressing a business card into my hand along with the envelope. That's my personal cell number. I know I'm connected to this mess through Amber, but I meant what I said. You deserve justice, and I'll help you get it however I can. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with everything I needed to do. The house was dark when I arrived, looking exactly as I'd left it 3 hours earlier when I thought I was just going out for a nice birthday dinner. I walked through each room with my phone, taking photos of everything. The expensive artwork David insisted we buy last year, the electronics, the furniture, the jewelry in my drawer, everything. Then I went to David's office, the room he always kept locked and said was off limits because of sensitive work documents. I found the key in his desk drawer where I'd seen him put it once, and I opened the file cabinet. What I found inside made my stomach turn. Bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed, credit card bills for purchases I'd never seen, receipts from jewelry stores, hotels, restaurants, a lease agreement for an apartment in downtown Chicago signed 8 months ago. 8 months. He'd been planning this separate life for at least 8 months, maybe longer. I photographed every single page, my hands steady now, my tears dried. The shock had worn off, replaced by cold, calculated anger. This wasn't just an affair. This was systematic deception. This was fraud. This was financial manipulation on a massive scale. By the time David's car pulled into the driveway at almost midnight, I was ready. I had changed out of my birthday dress into jeans and a t-shirt. I had packed 2 suitcases, one with his clothes and one with his toiletries. And I had called a locksmith, who promised to be there first thing in the morning to change every lock in the house. David walked in, looking exhausted and defeated. He saw the suitcases by the door, and his face crumpled. Jen, please, can we just talk about this like adults? There's nothing to talk about, I said calmly. You've been living a double life for months, maybe years. You got another woman pregnant. You rented a secret apartment. You have hidden bank accounts. You've been systematically lying to me about everything. What exactly is there to discuss? I made a mistake, he said desperately. It got out of hand. I never meant for it to go this far. I never meant for Amber to get pregnant. That was an accident. I laughed bitterly. An accident that lasted at least 9 months. An accident that involved telling her you were divorced. An accident that required renting a separate apartment and hiding thousands of dollars. That's not an accident, David. That's a choice. Multiple choices. He took a step toward me, but I held up my hand. Don't. Just take your suitcases and leave. You can stay at your secret apartment tonight, or with Amber. I don't care, but you cannot stay here. This is my house too, he said, anger creeping into his voice. You can't just kick me out. I'm not kicking you out legally. I'm asking you to leave voluntarily tonight because if you don't, I'm going to call the police and tell them I feel unsafe with you here after discovering your massive fraud and deception. How do you think that will look when we get to divorce court? His face went pale again. You're really going to do this? You're really going to throw away 12 years of marriage over one mistake? You threw away 12 years of marriage the moment you started sleeping with Amber. You threw it away when you lied to her about being divorced. You threw it away when you hid money and rented a secret apartment. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm just finally seeing what you destroyed months ago. We stood there in silence for a long moment, the weight of our collapsed marriage hanging between us. Finally, David picked up his suitcases. I'll come back for more of my things later. Call first, I said, and bring your lawyer, because mine will be present too. He left without another word, and I locked the door behind him. Then I walked to the bathroom and finally allowed myself to completely break down. I sat on the floor and sobbed, for the marriage I thought I had, for the trust that was shattered, for the future I'd envisioned that would never happen, for the children we'd talked about having someday that would now never exist. But somewhere in the midst of that grief, something else was growing, something harder and sharper. A determination that David would not get away with this, that he would not get to simply walk away and start his new life with Amber while leaving me with nothing but broken dreams and broken promises. Margaret had given me a weapon, information, money, and the name of a lawyer who specialized in exactly this kind of situation, and I was going to use every single tool at my disposal to make sure that when this was over, David understood exactly what it cost to betray someone who loved him. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding headache, but I also woke up with a plan. I called Robert Chen's office as soon as it opened on Monday morning. His secretary said he was booked solid for the next 2 weeks, but when I explained that I had been referred by Margaret Sullivan and briefly described my situation, she put me on hold. 30 seconds later, Robert Chen himself picked up the line. "Mrs. Hayes," he said, his voice warm but professional. "Margaret called me over the weekend and gave me a brief overview of your situation. I'd like to see you this afternoon if possible. Can you come to my office at 3? I agreed immediately and spent the rest of the morning organizing every document I'd photographed, printing out copies, and creating a timeline of David's deception as far as I could reconstruct it. When I walked into Robert Chen's downtown office at exactly 3 o'clock, I brought 3 binders full of evidence. Robert was in his 50s, with silver hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He spent 2 hours going through every piece of evidence I'd brought, asking detailed questions, taking notes. When we finished, he leaned back in his chair and looked at me with something like admiration. "Mrs. Hayes, I've been practicing family law for 27 years, and I have rarely seen someone come in this prepared. Most people show up in shock, with no documentation, no evidence, just their word against their spouse's word. You've built a case that any lawyer would kill to have. Your husband has made this very, very easy for us. What happens now?" I asked. "Now, we file for divorce on grounds of adultery. We also file for an emergency motion to freeze all marital assets so he can't hide or dissipate them. We're going to request full disclosure of all bank accounts, credit cards, and assets. We're going to depose his mistress about the apartment and any money he spent on her. And we're going to push for a settlement that reflects not just the division of marital property, but also compensation for the fraud he committed." Over the next 3 months, the divorce proceedings were brutal. David fought everything. He claimed Amber was just a friend, that the baby might not even be his, that the apartment was a work necessity. But every lie he told was contradicted by the evidence I'd gathered, and the testimony Margaret encouraged Amber to provide. Amber, for her part, had her own awakening. When she realized the full extent of David's deception, not just to me but to her, she became cooperative with my legal team. She provided text messages, photos, and detailed accounts of David's promises and lies. Margaret sat with her through every deposition, a united front of women who had been damaged by the same man. The final settlement was more than I could have hoped for. I got the house, 70% of our combined assets including his retirement accounts, and David was ordered to pay substantial alimony for 5 years. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, made it clear from the bench that she found David's conduct reprehensible and that his attempts to hide assets during the divorce only made things worse for him. David and Amber's relationship didn't survive the stress of the divorce and the revelations about his character. She broke up with him 2 months before the baby was born and moved back in with Margaret. David now pays child support to Amber and alimony to me, and according to Margaret, he's living in a small apartment barely making ends meet while trying to rebuild his reputation at work. As for me, I used some of the settlement money to completely renovate the house, erasing every trace of David from its walls. I threw myself into my design work and started freelancing on the side, building a business I'd always dreamed about, but never had time for during my marriage. And 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I went back to Bellissimo for dinner. I sat at the same table where my birthday celebration had started, where my marriage had ended. I ordered the same appetizer I never got to finish that night, and when the waiter asked if I was expecting anyone else, I smiled and said, "No, just me tonight." It felt like closure, like reclaiming a space that had been tainted by trauma and transforming it into a symbol of my resilience. I was 35 years old when my marriage fell apart in that restaurant. Now, at 36, I was sitting in the same spot, but I was a completely different woman, stronger, wiser, free. My phone buzzed with a text from Margaret. "Thinking of you today. proud of how far you've come. We'd become unlikely friends in the aftermath of everything, bonded by the shared experience of watching David's house of lies collapse. She even brought Amber's baby, a little girl named Sophie, to meet me once. It was awkward, but healing in a strange way. As I finished my meal and prepared to leave, I noticed a young woman at a nearby table, maybe late 20s, sitting alone and looking anxiously at her phone. Her date was late, or maybe not coming at all. I remembered being her once, waiting for David in restaurants, making excuses for his delays, believing his stories. I almost walked past her, but something made me stop. I reached into my purse and pulled out one of Robert Chen's business cards that I still carried, just in case. I walked over to her table. "Excuse me," I said gently. "I don't mean to intrude, but I noticed you've been waiting a while. I just want you to know, whoever you're waiting for, if they can't appreciate you enough to show up on time or even call, you deserve better. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where you need legal help, especially with family law, this attorney saved my life." I placed the card on her table and walked away before she could respond, leaving her staring after me with a confused but grateful expression. Maybe she'd use the card someday. Maybe she wouldn't. But maybe, just maybe, I'd planted a seed that would help her recognize her own worth before she wasted 12 years like I did. As I walked out of Bellissimo into the cool evening air, I thought about that night 1 year ago, when Margaret Sullivan sat down at my table and changed my life forever. She'd given me money, information, and most importantly, the courage to see the truth and act on it. She'd shown me that sometimes the people who save us come from the most unexpected places, and now I was trying to pay that forward, because that's what we do when we survive something that should have destroyed us. We reach back and pull others up. We share our strength. We refuse to let the people who hurt us have the final word on who we become. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove toward my future, whatever it might hold. I was no longer David's wife. I was no longer a victim of his lies. I was simply Jennifer Hayes, 36 years old, starting over, and finally, genuinely happy. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt the pain of betrayal, or the strength that comes from choosing yourself, please subscribe to this channel. Share your own stories in the comments. Let's build a community of people who refuse to accept less than they deserve. And remember, no matter how dark the moment feels, there's always a path forward. Sometimes it starts with a stranger's kindness in a restaurant. Sometimes it starts with your own decision to stop accepting lies. But it always starts with believing you deserve better, because you do.